Welcome back, everyone. Dad for Life here. Got this car to tinker with a couple of months ago, and I needed to do a couple of things to it. Replace a thermostat, replace a water pump, do a couple of other things here and there, but in the process, wanted to flush the old coolant out of there, flush the radiator, replace everything, just so it's all nice and fresh. And in the process, I think I got an air bubble in our cooling system because, I mean, frankly, that's what the car is acting like. And these cars are pretty notorious for getting that. These ecotechs, the Saturn Skies, Pontiac Solstices, Cobalts, are pretty notorious for that. And GM did come up with a remedy, which is these check valves that will go in line with in our cooling system that we're about to install. And they seem pretty straightforward, and if this actually does work, this should be a long-term solution as well. For about 25 bucks on Rock Auto for both of them, shipped to the house, this could be a good solution. Let's get started. Here's what the check valve looks like. And with the part number, the GM part number 208-76185. Really pretty inexpensive fix if this actually does fix it. Where they go, this was the most confusing part for me, is one of the valves will go right here, and this is a 2.0 turbo. So you do have another coolant line running off of here to the turbo. So you're gonna have one of these check valves go in just like this into this hose, and the second one is actually going to be this return line right here. Go ahead and pull the clamp up first, remove the hose, and just as suspected is dry, and then take the clamp all the way off instead of putting it all the way to the back. Alright, so in this step, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this valve and this little check valve. And it's really pretty simple. It's there's a little ball in there that seats. You can actually hear it. And this is the flow. So if this is going to sit against the nipple just like this, facing down. And as the flow of the coolant is coming up from the bottom up, if there is an air bubble, the ball is going to seat against this little seat in here and is going to prevent any air from coming back down, and the ball will not unseat until more fluid hits it and starts again circulating through the system. So that's the concept of it, which is really pretty simple. So the next steps that we're going to take is we're supposed to take a non-silicone based lubricant. My alternative that I've seen and that I've read about is people said to take, I don't really have anything specific for this, but people said to take olive oil, and that's exactly what I did. So go ahead and place the nipple into the hose. And again, the reason for the lubricant is twofold, is for it to be able to slide in to the hose a little bit easier, for one, and two, we can actually remove the towel, and two, as the temperatures of the engine kind of heat everything up around it, it should prevent the nipple from getting seized up inside the deal should you ever have to take it out. To be honest, if you ever have to take this thing off, you probably just have to replace the hose. So the next step, what I'm doing is actually pushing. So again, the nipple is in there, it's facing the right way, and I'm gonna push this hose into a seated position before I put the clamp back on. So there is a little bit of a angle here, a little bit of a turn, and you can see it's bulging up just a little bit. We'll see with time if that makes a difference or if it'll crack the hose. But once it's in a seated position, pull this back off. Now the the valve is in the right position, it's actually, nope, still vertical. So one thing you don't want to do is push it too far where the ball is horizontally and it is not able to seat. So you always want to make sure that your valve is pointing down in a downward direction. So I think I'm probably right at the max where the valve is sitting right here and it's still pointed down. But if I go too much further, it's not going to be as effective. So I'm going to leave it there. And at this point, take the clamp, put the clamp back on, seat your hose, and this one is done. The next one is going to be this number 2, which is step number 2, is this hose right here. So we're going to do the same steps of removing the hose and installing the valve. The same process, facing down. The nipple will be, the valve will be pointed towards the nipple, and removing the hose, putting the valve in, putting the hose back on, clamping everything back up. One note worth saying here is make sure that there's no side loading applied to the step where you put the check valve inside the hose. If too much force is applied, then nipple coming off the radiator hose could break off, and of course we don't want to mess with that. So just a side note to be careful to make sure that when you're pressing it on, it is pressed on and as straight as you can. Okay, here we are. All right, so same process. Using a little bit of olive oil to coat the valve. Now I can't get it out of this little cup. It's slick. We're gonna insert it the same way with the tapered end of this check valve. Tapered end is pointing towards the nipple on the radiator. Again, want to stress and make sure, just per the directions, that you put this on as straight as you can so as to not put any side load on this valve, on this nipple, excuse me, and break the nipple. So I'm gonna have to probably get in the way of the camera with my hand to get it on, but bear with me. Again, just checking that the tapered end is down. Get the valve to the seated position, but make sure that it is still remains vertical. This will take a little bit of finesse because of this awkward angle that it's at. So bear with me for a minute. All right, there it looks like, feels like the valve is on and the hose is in the seated position all the way down. The valve is still in the vertical position. I realize that it's a little bit in the way, but as you can see, the hose is seated all the way down. The valve is sitting right. I think the top of the valve is right about here. The hose clamp will go right there on the hose, and we should be good to go. Reinstall it the same way we did on the first one. All right, so there you have it. I'm gonna personally keep a little bit of a closer eye here at the elbow. As you can see, I mean, that's right where the hose bends. And I don't really know if the valve is gonna do anything right here. At first I actually thought it was already a nick and it's starting to break and a cut, and I thought I had to replace the hose, but it actually still seems to be sealed. Just keep an eye on it, make sure that the hoses are not brittle and break on you. But these valves are in, so we're gonna bleed the cooling system next. All right, excuse the dirty engine bay, still got a little bit of cleaning to do. So now just setting it up to bleed the system a little bit. Make sure we're full of coolant. Send this off to the side. Coolant, as I would suspect, is low. Go ahead and top it off. It is really low. I am using just AutoZone yellow coolant. I realized that these cars originally came with red GM certified coolant and all that, so fully recognize that. I've also read somewhere in most forums that once you do change out the coolant, that it's actually okay to go with yellow or really just about any other one. I always welcome your feedback. If that's wrong and I need to go back with the orange, let me know. Maybe that's part of the cooling issue, but yeah, here we go. All right, I hear it going in the bottle. So it took a little bit for it to start circulating, but I don't see leaks anywhere yet, but it's of course not under pressure yet. So I'm gonna do this 2 or 3 times just to make sure we have good solid liquid all the way around. So this time, this will be the final circulation of the coolant. So I know the system should be full, as I just returned to the previous level, as you kind of see right here. And we are going to circulate just enough to get us down to the cold fill line, which is right where the at the seam of this container. All right, that looks good right there. So now I'm actually going to leave this on, and we are going to pressure test next. All right, let's pressure test our system. This is definitely a hand workout. All right, looks like we're about 13, 14 PSI. That should tell us whether or not we have any leaks anywhere. Now looks all right. That is wet from when we first removed the hose. Doesn't look like it's actually actively leaking anywhere. And we still have our 13 to 14 PSI with no leak off. So release the pressure, remove the cap, top off the reservoir if you need to. And next step is going to be to test drive the car. I took her for a couple of long drives and it seemed to have fixed the problem. I was expecting something really dramatic, like the temperature skyrocketing, pun intended, and then drastically dropping, saying, aha, that was the air coming out of the system, but didn't really see any of that. After drove it the first time, I did get the low coolant indicator light in the reservoir, which makes sense. If there's a large air bubble in the system and it evacuates or burps out the air and it fills that void with more fluid, therefore you should have less fluid in the reservoir. Ever since then, it's been staying at the same level, so again, I tested to probably working. We'll keep driving it around and see if she gets warm or if there's any other issues with it. But so far, it was a pretty simple installation, all in about 30 minutes. Nothing too difficult. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll catch you next time.